that's why I ask. But if it happens, then mushrooms are gonna, it's gonna take care of it. So it's not that big of a deal. I just try to get the cleanest wood chips that you can, and if you can kind of know what you're getting, then you have a better idea of matching up your species with those wood chips. Like we were just talking about Stropharia, that can go on a bunch of different types of substrates, where oyster would do the same, and hen of the woods would be like, yeah, we only want this specific type, which would be like oak or something like that.
So the wood chips I got were definitely mixed. There was pine and some sort of, deciduous tree mixed in there. And it worked for the king Stradivarius and the oyster mushroom.
That's great.
You got a lot of cedar.
Thank you for
wood chips.
the cedar wood chips, and also locust, because locust also have tons of tannins
And lots of antifungal stuff.
right, exactly, antifungal.
So when you're doing lots of different funguses together, do you have to worry about consumption and the breeding and whatnot of what happens when different myceliums or funguses interact?
Usually you have a good control, I guess, on most of that when you're cultivating, it seems like.
So the king Stropharia does a giant mat, right? It forms a good mat. So if you want to grow other funguses within it, whether psychedelic or edible, medicinal, they will breed together, correct?
Usually they won't breed together. No, they won't
Okay.
breed together. They're two different species. And what's happening is, like,
They're competing for nutrients.
they're competing for nutrients, exactly.
You want to keep them separate.
And they're going to war it out, basically. If they come to
One
head,
will overcome the other.
one's going to overcome the other, push it back, or whatever it's going to do to basically fruit and come up. So that's one thing I like to go over too, is that so a mushroom life cycle, right? It's pretty simple, but it's I had a hard time with it for myself, so I like to help people with it. Is a mushroom comes up, pops up out of the ground, it comes off a log, however a mushroom comes up, and then it sporulates out the bottom of its gills. And that's the reason it has its top, because it's just like a hood, like a helmet. So it's protecting all those spores underneath there, and all of a sudden it releases those spores, and it goes into the air, and they land on a surface like wood or something that they want to go and eat the lignins inside the wood. So the two come together. They positive and negative, male, female, and that isn't always the case, because they can be, what do you call that whenever they're
Hermaphrodite?
yeah, so there's another word for it, but basically they don't need another sex to keep on going. So there's those types of mushrooms, but the mushrooms I'm talking about, they come together and reproduce that way, and that starts forming hypha. The hypha turns into mycelium. The mycelium turns into a mat, whether it's a log or whether it's underneath the ground. And then the conditions arise where it doesn't have enough moisture, or it has everything it needs. It has everything it needs and more, and it comes up and sporulates, and the cycle comes up and starts again. So the thing I wanted to really let you guys know about is that the mushroom is the apple, and the mycelium is the tree, if that makes sense to people. Okay, so it's all underneath of our feet what's happening, and we only get to see like the fruit of.
And the fruit's not there the whole time. Mycelium's there all around the whole year. Yeah.
The fruit's a reaction to stress or need to propagate, right?
Yeah, it wants to release its spores because the conditions are right usually, and sometimes maybe the conditions are wrong, but it's stressed out because they're gonna have a clear cut or something like that, and it's like maybe it already knows that on some level, and fruits out, shoots spores. Yeah, I think that there's definitely interconnection, intelligence going on underneath our feet, that if there is a clear cut here, they can tell stuff miles away that this is happening.
Yeah.
To prepare.
I mean, they already have found in science that plants are able to use certain molecules to communicate with one another through the root systems, and the mycelium actually facilitates that to go much further.
Well, not
distances.
even within root systems. I've heard of a study with two bean plants in separate pots with a pole in the center, and one reaches the pole before the other, and the other one searches for a different source of growing. that is like entirely separate root systems. or
Yeah, I
mediums.
definitely believe it. There's
Oh yeah, it's happening.
much more than meets the eye.
Yeah. All right. So another type of mushroom that's is out there. Another type of mushroom is a parasitic type of mushroom feeding on the weak. The parasitic types of mushrooms also take plant host. Although in this case the relationship is one-sided. These fungi will infect the host and eventually kill it. A good one to check in on is the honey fungus that is attacking a huge amount of trees over in Oregon, and not just there but up here as well. Basically the whole Northwest is infected by the honey mushroom, and it's a parasitic mushroom. There's a controversy over it for sure, because there's some people that are saying it's killing the forest and other people are saying that it's helping the forest. And
How can you identify honey mushrooms that are edible? Because I've seen so many times in the forest what I'm pretty sure is a honey mushroom, or even growing out of wood chips, you know, but I can never tell for sure. And is there
so
like,
there's a smell to them.
Yeah.
There's a really fine smell, like edible smell to them. Another one is to get a guidebook. Is the way I recommend to everybody.
No,
Is
of
not
course.
to, you know,
Yeah.
the best guidebook out there that I've found is All That the Rain Has to Offer and More
David Aurora?
by David Aurora.
Yeah.
All the rain has to offer more.
Yeah, and you just put it in your back of your pocket, and you can walk into the woods and help your family and other people just identify some mushrooms. It's really fun, and the book is great. It's just pretty comical. It's got all kinds of nice pictures, and just, yeah, it's a really good book. So All the Rain Has to Offer and More. It's about a $15 book maybe, and I would suggest it. So yeah.
It might be All That the Rain Promises and more.
I think you're right. Sorry.
And that kind of focuses on the Northwest mushroom.
Specifically Northwest, yeah. And then he also has a book out there, and that's, what's that one titled? Anybody have that off the top of their head? It's a huge one though. It's like the Wildcrafter's Bible basically to
If you look on
mushrooms.
Amazon, they'll give you this as a suggestion probably.
Mushrooms Demystified.
Yeah, Mushrooms Demystified. There you go. It's a great book.
So I found this app called the Book of Mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
It's got edible and inedible species. It's got descriptions on how to ID them.
Nice.
Pictures.
I've been wanting to find an app actually that has stuff like that, so it's great. What's it called again?
Book of Mushrooms.
Book of Mushrooms. I'll have to check that out. So other types of parasitic mushrooms are the caterpillar fungus, Cordyceps cyanescens. This one's really cool. I love this mushroom because it infects the host, again, like an insect. And what the insect does is it eats a little bit of this mycelial matter. It goes through the insect, colonizes the insect, and then when it's ready, it produces a mushroom that sporulates off the top of the insect's body. So it colonizes it and then goes through, and it's just a really cool mushroom.
Cordyceps, is that one of the ones that they use for medicine?
Yes.
Yeah, up in like the Himalayas, they use it for Sherpas that
Cancer
build their lung
fighting, all
capacity,
kinds
yeah.
of different things. Yeah. Immune enhancement. A lot of these mushrooms are immune enhancement mushrooms, like turkey tails. Those are immune enhancing, cancer fighting. Lion's mane is
Polysaccharides.
another type of parasitic fungi that is super medicinal, and the one that you find around here is also there's the lion's mane, but there's also called a bear's tooth head or a bear's head tooth. Can't remember which
Those
way
are
it goes.
super cool and exciting to see in the wild too.
Super amazing. Just a white blob on the side of a tree with stalactites coming
The first time I
down.
saw one, I was just like going crazy.
Right.
They're around here?
Yeah, there's both varieties are around here as far as I know. I know, especially if you go to the North Panhandle in Idaho, like around Priest Lake, you'll definitely find both types of mushrooms. And then the Chaga obliquus is also in this area on the birch trees. I've never found this stuff, but I've heard of people finding it in this area. Not so much like hot springs maybe, but like on the other side of the mountains, right? Like Sanders County is amazing because it's got the driest part, or driest in the state of Montana, and the wettest part in the state of Montana. That's what skiers told me anyways. So I believe it because you go over the mountains towards Thompson Falls here, just like right around where these fires are coming from. And yeah, just amazing wet ground with chanterelles and porcinis and turkey tails and all kinds of different types of stuff. And morels for sure. That's where I hunted most of the season, was over in Thompson Falls this last year. Picked about 1,000 pounds of morels.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's what I do for most of my income actually, is hunt morels and hunt fungus and give workshops and stuff like that. So, and I do a big garden as well.
Where are you located?
In Kettle Falls, Washington, so about 6 hours to the northeast, or northwest, I'm sorry. It's more west than north, but yeah. And so that's one thing about mushrooms and permaculture I wanted to share with everybody, is everybody's trying to figure out how to make it without going and getting a full-time job or whatever, and that's one way I would suggest new time permaculture people's trying to build a little income in that direction, because it's like literally 10-year-old kids will go into the woods and make 150 bucks in a
Gourmet
day.
mushrooms are,
Yeah, so if you go to these places in the right timing of the season, then you can find a very nice bounty of mushrooms that you can do all kinds of different things with, value-added products that can help you move and
So,
whatever.
Gabriel, how do you stimulate the propagation of these wild mushrooms, if you do?
Okay, so ways that you can stimulate wild mushroom is by spore slurries that we talked about. And were you here for that?
No, but I've definitely heard of spore
And we can
slurries.
talk about that later.
Yeah, definitely.
But another method I wanted to share with you guys for people that are trying to get more fungus on their properties is taking any type of mushroom, but definitely oyster mushrooms have been tried and true, is that you can take these edible oyster mushrooms, dry them out, or take old blown up ones again and put them in a burlap bag, and then you can hang that in a gully. Usually you want to know like which way your wind's traveling, kind of. That's always nice. You hang that up in the tree, and those mushrooms will sit there and dry, and they'll be sporulating in that bag and whatnot. Rain will come, they'll dry out, that kind of dry, wet kind of stuff. But what's going to happen is, especially if they're dry, is the wind's going to take your spore, especially if you have like a bunch of alders down there, right? And you know oysters grow on alders, so you put them in this bag and let the wind carry down the spore down into your gully, or up into your gully if
The wind goes.
the wind goes up, or down. Or maybe it goes both ways. What else was I going to say about that? So you can also add, thank you. You can also add a stick to the mix to help. That's what it was in Zep Holter's book, is you could put a stick on there to like actually help hit the bag, and that would help send this spore into the air better.
and they just land where they land.
And they land where they land. Most likely you want to be trying to go for stuff that, like oysters that will go on willow or river birch.
I could just walk out into the national forest and leave a burlap sack full of oyster mushrooms sitting there for,
Yeah.
come back in 6 months or whatever.
But most likely, yeah, you could do that, but one of the best techniques is on your own property, because you don't have to walk as far, right? You can just go down to your gully and check to see if it worked. And or
If I
like
had a property, I
you go into the gully and you find, or when I'm saying gully, I'm saying like creek draw or something like that, or riparian zone, and you can go down there, find what kind of mushrooms you already have, bring those back up and use those, or you can go into the national forest and find mushrooms that you want to use and bring it onto your property. So there's all kinds of different ways you can enhance the spore on your property or the fungus on your property.
Great.
Go down to the farmer's market and buy yourself a few wild crafted mushrooms and bring them home and do your slurry.
Yeah,
Or a
totally.
source?
Oh, absolutely. You can go to the market up at Camas here and definitely do that for sure.
Why are you wasting time? Get started.
I mean, that's one thing we could work on right now if you guys wanted to. We could do a spore slurry for these guys. There's shaggy parasol over there. I don't know if anybody's over there on the other side of this tent.
Those
But
ones are edible?
those are edible. Yep. Yeah, and those are great for our landscape. Everybody could take one home and do a spore slurry if they wanted to. But these are great mushrooms. They're like the inky caps. They're just like that, but they last longer. They're super amazing because they get real tall sometimes and big plate-like tops. Maybe not that tall, but more like that, I guess. Wow.
Still wild.
Still big and
So the inky
mystical.
caps, that's the same as shaggy maize, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, they don't last long at all.
No. No, nothing in the Pinus family seems to last very long. They seem to just like one day and they're
Yeah.
just done doing
So
something
we've
else.
got sheep, and right around their feed bed, their hay bunk, they just crap in it and pee in it and drop all that hay. So I pile that up in the spring, and as soon as it starts to dry down, the first rain, the entire pile's just covered with inky caps. I mean, literally covered. I've got pictures of it.
That's so cool. I'd like to see those.
Yeah.
Are inky caps the ones that make you sick if you drink alcohol within like 24 hours?
There's a kind of alcohol that does that.
There's all kinds of mushrooms that do that actually. You don't want to mess with like alcohol consumption in mushrooms very much because even morels they've got warnings out there that can kill you basically. That's what morels and wine or alcohol can do. And I know it sounds wild that a morel could kill you, but there's cases out there with people drinking alcohol and eating morels and that's not just morels, there's all kinds of mushrooms that are alive.
And
Even by like cooking them and stuff, but
Yeah.
still.
I haven't heard that about the morels, but the inky caps, there's a chemical in there that prevents your body from breaking down alcohol. So then if you're just drinking a little bit of alcohol, it like basically is like recirculated through your blood over and over. So it's like you're drinking
alcohol
a ton. Yeah, it's like and so some people use it to prevent alcohol abuse. You know, like if someone's like in recovery, they'll give them little tablets of this mushroom because if they have a sip of beer, then they start puking. Like it's like they've already
Already had
alcohol
too much or
poisoning.
something, yeah.
Yeah, I have to have an internet connection to pull up those shaggy maize, but I got a couple other mushroom pictures.
I have a question about, so I'm pretty new to mushrooms, but I've been buying the powdered mushrooms. So how much of the medicinal qualities of it is still intact when it's in powdered form?
A lot.
It's still good.
Yeah, I think there's a lot for sure.
Most of those mushroom medicinal powders are actually not made from the mushroom themselves, but they're made from the mycelium.
Someone just popped up.
So you can grow the mycelium on rye grain or something, or get some organic grain, and then dehydrate that, and then blend it up and make your own powder.
Yeah.
Like tempeh. You're essentially grinding up tempeh, right?
Yeah, it's tempeh.
But it's for that particular fungi.
Fungi, exactly. But yeah, people take that and colonize like wheat berries and stuff like that, and then you can take that and chop it up and fry it, and make tempeh kind of juicy little.
What do you prefer, wheat berries or rye berries?
They both work, but I
Rye's
prefer
cheaper.
Rye's cheaper.
Rye's cheaper. I was gonna say where I was getting is wheat was actually seemed cheaper.
I'm sure it's
but,
different in
but yeah, it might
areas.
be different. What's that?
How does barley work?
Barley works great too.
oats too. That's what
Oats
we're
too.
trying.
Yep. Coffee
Or
grounds.
wild
I'm wondering why I don't
bird
have
food.
They're not too
mushrooms
acidic?
growing up around my pig pen because they waste so much of their grain. It just falls all over the place, and it's so rich, the soil.
Oh yeah.
The grain
Oysters.
is actually
Oysters are good for the coffee.
like if you're trying to grow mushrooms on grain, so many things want to eat the grain that you have to sterilize it first.
Yeah.
So if it's outside if it's just on the ground, there's all kinds of bacteria and stuff that are going to outcompete the
And
mushrooms
quail.
for it.
Yeah, right. The quail.
Damn Californians.
Okay, so this the mushroom shaggy parasol right over there that's on the ground. 1 in 9 people could get sick off of that mushroom, and I've served it to hundreds of people at this point, and nobody's ever got sick. But there is like 1 in 9 cases where this shaggy parasol could make you sick. So it's not going to
Like
kill
house
you.
sick.
Just like make your gut
Nauseous.
kind of turn. You might have, number 2 a little bit more and often or whatever. But yeah, I've never had that. And anybody I've ever served it to, nobody's ever complained about it or anything like that. But it's an excellent mushroom to have in your landscape because it pops up every year almost. And it's not just once but twice. Usually it's in June and usually again in September, like right now. That's what we're seeing them. So
Do you worry about where you gather them from? Like,
absolutely.
So like, is this area okay?
This area I
Well,
would
this
say
is
is
a garden.
definitely okay because she doesn't use Roundup or anything like that necessarily. But if you were like by any mines or anything like that, they're basically like mushroom accumulates toxins really easy. They pull it out of the ground. That's another whole topic that we could get into with remediation with mushrooms. But so inky caps are one to really watch for. Like if you're finding them alongside the road, you don't want to pick those. And nothing alongside the road you want to pick. Even wild crafting probably. I wouldn't necessarily just pick stuff up in the trees, right? So the inky caps and a lot of other mushrooms will just pull oil out of the ground and other toxins and put it up into their cellular structure. So
What about dog poop?
dog poop and pee, I personally
As long as
wouldn't
it's not
go
on
in.
the mushroom, it should.
Yeah, I wouldn't eat it myself probably, and I'd just maybe use that one for a spore slurry or something and go get the other ones that are a little bit
That was
nicer.
the question I had. So that panther was the one that was right next to a burn pile. I know had lead paint and stuff like that. So I wasn't gonna try to consume that one, but the spores would have been all right, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To go spread.
Yep, and a great way to do that, if somebody hasn't known this, is you just put the mushroom down on a piece of paper, white or black paper, depending on what color the spores are, because you have tan spores, yellow spores, green spores, white spores, black spores, gray spores, brown spores. So that's going to help you ID your mushroom. That's the best way you can ID your mushroom is through your spore print. Thank you. And so,
Yeah, there's forums online like at Shroomery and whatnot that you can put up all your pictures and have people who have a lot of experience
a lot
at
of
it help you.
experience. Yep.
That's a great resource. But
Yeah.
like that-
Shroomery.org is that resource, and it's got tons and tons of.
There's
You
a
have-
Facebook group too that does it. But
I love
I'd go
wild
to
mushrooms
Shroomery.
or something like that.
But yeah, I wouldn't-
There's
I
one
wouldn't
that's
get
specific to the
any
Pacific
near railroad
Northwest.
tracks.
Okay.
Is anybody local here?
I'm like an hour away. What'd you say?
Do you guys have a mycology network here? Like anybody that meets a club? or
There's a
anything?
Western Montana Mycological
Society.
Society on Facebook, but there's never events.
Yeah. Is Larry Evans?
Spokane one
Yeah.
pretty much closed up.
Okay, didn't know that. Yeah, so that's always a good group of people to link up with if they're in your area, because they can help you get more into mushrooms and learn way more about it. So if you do have that in your area, I'd suggest getting involved with that, because it'll really help ID and help other people in your family. Yeah. What else do we have to talk about? Anybody have any questions at this point? Anything else?
I was wondering about, if you get going on this, and is there any way to figure? I mean, if you want to grow more than just what you're going to use in your own house, like in a garden type situation, mixed in and using different methods, that how much square feet or area you'd need to be able to have some surplus where you can take it to the local
farmer's market
market
or something. Okay, well that's a good question. Local, more access to how you make more. So basically, spore slurries and things like that is a good thing to just keep on doing, and that's going to boost your production. But also bringing in wood chips and things like that in a sized bed to get a good production would be
Talking about the mushrooms indoors.
No, I just doing stuff out in
your garden.
Out in your garden, and how big an area you would need to treat in order to get beyond just your own.
So like this would be like a bed, and I've done beds like about like this, and you can get probably off of, usually they fruit like 2 to 3 times your beds in one season. The first season, the second season's a little bit less, the third season's it's a little bit less, but if you add types of substrate to it that likes to eat, like hay and coffee grounds and
Alfalfa.
all kinds of different things, then
nutrients.
you can feed that species and continue it on its lineage and get it to go stronger and stronger. But so you might get off your first flush here, you might get 3 to 5 pounds of mushrooms. So I mean, that might be enough to eat for you and your family a couple times, and then maybe take a little bit to the farmer's market. So having like 2 to 4 beds, I guess, would probably get you enough to be able to start doing some markets and stuff like that. For me, it's really, when I'm doing garden stuff like that, it's not about the market so much, or at least not right now. It's more about building my mycelial mat, my mycelial connections underneath the ground for all the other plants I'm trying to grow.
So I have a spot in my garden that every spring it's always the last to clear water, so I can't till it or do anything to prep beds until really late. So I'm contemplating doing some raised beds in there and just putting willows, just like basketry willows.
Yeah.
And maybe in between those rows of willows, then putting down a lot of wood chips, and that would be an ideal place, I think, maybe to raise mushrooms. But then I wonder how that high water table might affect them.
I think it'd be good myself. Just the idea of if it's going to be real wet and then dry. It's like right now it's getting dry, right?
Oh, right now it's bone dry.
Yeah.
But you know, I could probably dig 3 feet and hit water.
Yep. Yeah. So I'd say try some mycelium or some mushroom activity over there. Maybe even trying to colonize some logs, make them like that big, and then you could like put them in there tower-wise. That might.
They-
So
no shading right now. It's open. I'm
could
thinking of putting the willows up there. That'll give it some shade, but then also suck up a lot of that water. I'm hoping.
So that is a method of putting the logs in the ground on high water table or lower water, just to have the water be wicked up.
Yeah.
Instead of
That's
like
a cool idea.
sprinkling, you're having sprinklers on it and having stacks.
That's a good way too. I mean, there's
But
different ways.
if you don't
the
want to
wicking
use a
up, they
sprinkler.
say if it's a sandy ground helps it wick a
Yeah,
little
I've
bit
got
more.
good sandy ground.
Yeah, that'll help it wick more. And
So I'm gonna cut down a pear tree. I got a feral pear tree back in the yard, and I'm gonna cut it. The log's probably about 8 inches in diameter. So that's the kind of thing I could probably get maybe a half a dozen poles out of that and stick that down where I'm gonna put the willows. What would you inoculate into a pear?
oyster.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the easiest one to work with.
To inoculate?
Fruitwood is hard for a lot of mushrooms.
That's what I was
So
going to
dense.
say too, but I was going to say oysters would probably be your best one, because oysters will basically attack everything that I know of, on some level. Besides cedar and locust, I think they kind of stay away from that. But fruitwood, you might want to check it out, do some more research.
I have a question that might help him of training in fungus. So starting with a substrate that they're used to or prefer, whether it's coffee grounds with the pleurotus or whatever, or straw, then putting in some of the fruit trees bark into it, would that allow higher chances of propagation on the log?
It could, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I'm almost thinking, in this discussion here, if I was to get some of those and just create the poles as wicks, just to try to dry the ground out a little bit faster, but I'd put them in the alleys between where the willows would go. And those are going to be filled with wood chips, just for weed control and whatnot. I can inoculate those wood chips and the logs.
Yeah.
And that way, if you've got it going slow in the log because it's so dense and whatnot, then maybe after time,
the network
that
will
would
be
prevent
connected.
the log from getting colonized by something else before it has time to adjust to that new wood.
Yeah.
And if you're going to try making that connection happen, you might want to try getting the same species.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, like maybe just make the slurry out of some extra plugs. So buy extra plugs and grind them up in the Vitamix.
That's a great idea.
Or Blendtec,
Yeah.
whichever. I have a Vitamix. Will it blend?
One issue with growing or trying to market mushrooms from your garden, not in logs, is that you end up with huge amounts at
At
when
once.
it's the right conditions, and so you might not have any for months, and then you have this huge amount. So
Right.
what a lot of people do is they'll dry them, or they'll find other ways to market them
Yeah.
over a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
We're in a co-op that I'm pretty sure we can move mushrooms, but
Yeah.
not a lot of people in the co-op moving mushrooms.
No, not very many.